Good morning, good evening, good day, good night, wherever you are in the world. We have a lot of participants from all over the world, and we are happy that you're here and take your time to learn some more about the famous theory of constraints. Please feel free to ask questions using the GoToWebinar control panel, and I will condense those questions at the end of the webinar and ask Rami to answer some of those. You can use this tool of GoToWebinar for your questions. Please remember, this is a part of a 3-session webinar series. The first one was last week, the next one will be next week. For a limited time, you have the ability to view the video from the last session, and the same will be available for this session too. And let's start with the webinar. The topic today is bringing forecast closer to reality. One participant asked what TOC can have to do with forecasting, but I think Rami will enlighten us about that. Using real-life examples from retail, Rami Goldratt shows us how it is possible to bring forecast closer to reality. One famous sentence in this context: the only way out is to reduce as much as possible the reaction time to what reality teaches us. Our speaker, our guest, is Rami Goldratt, CEO of Goldratt Consulting, headquartered in Israel, represented obviously all around the world, and he is recognized as a world-leading authority for the theory of constraints. Rami, it's yours.
Hello, just pass me the presentation, please. I can share my screen. Thank you very much. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So, hello everybody, and welcome to our second webinar. The subject of today's webinar is about how can we imagine and manage our company given the fact that the uncertainty in our reality is increasing more and more. Now, it seems like under crisis conditions, obviously uncertainty is very high and we cannot rely on the planning and the projections we have done in the past, and we have to read as quickly as possible the signals from reality to know how to react to it, and for example to determine our purchasing decisions, our manufacturing decisions, our inventory decisions, all of that based on what we read as quickly as possible from reality. But somehow what we have seen is that when these type of crises go away, we go back to old habits. And suddenly we assume that under normal times, when we don't have crisis, then we can manage our company with more or less accurate forecasts. So we do the best we can, because we cannot manage obviously without any planning, and I will never recommend not to do planning. But we believe somehow that in normal times, yes, there will be fluctuations, but we can manage it. So let's do the best forecast we can, and then play as it goes. And what I would like to try and persuade you, or at least make you think in this webinar, is that put aside that the crisis, even in the normal times, in today's reality, we cannot rely on our forecasts. The famous phrase that my father said, that forecast is wrong the moment you write it, was never more true. And actually it becomes more and more valid as reality unfolds. So I would start this presentation by devoting some time to explain to you why actually forecasts in today's reality, not only that they are not accurate, they cannot be accurate, and they will be less and less accurate. And this is despite the fact that We have more sophisticated IT system that learn very quickly and give us inputs, and they can process big data. And this is despite of the fact that we have more recorded history of consumption to learn from. So we may have believe that the accuracy of our forecast will be better, but this is not the case, and I will explain to you why. And this is not just a theoretical understanding or academic discussion. It's much more than that. If you will understand why forecast will not be more accurate and actually will be less accurate, then the unavoidable conclusion will be that the more our operations will rely on the accuracy of the planning that we have to do, the less successful we will be. Actually, we will need to assume upfront that whatever we do in our plan, yeah, we gave it the best shot, it will not be accurate. And therefore, we have to have a very agile operation that can react very, very quickly to what reality tells us. And I will show you in the second part of this presentation in a case study, an example of how to do it. So let us start. I want to start by building the base for the inaccuracy of the forecast, because we do come across situations that companies tell us that they actually have very high alignment to forecast. But there is a big difference between alignment to forecast, in other words, to what extent you are adhering to your plan, and alignment to reality. So let's just use very quickly two case studies that we have faced with our customers. One is a very big retailer of wristwatch, and they have several hundreds of stores. In this case, the cycle time from manufacturing to finished goods was at the store was about 3 months. And they had their forecast method was to have a rolling 3 months sales forecast to the regional warehouse, and then to update it monthly. Okay, and when we've met with them, they said, look, we have actually very high alignment to forecast. We have 80% alignment to forecast. But then we did a thorough check, what really reality shows. And then we saw that from the products that have good sellability record, they have 50% shortages. And at the same time, 30% of the store inventory is non-moving. Non-moving according to their definition of what is aged inventory. Basically, you can be very aligned to forecast, but this doesn't mean that the forecast really is aligned with reality. Here's another example. In this case, is from a garment fashion retailer, vertically integrated. Their cycle time was from concept to garments, about 9 months. This is very common in the fashion retail industry. The season time is 3 months. The forecast method forecast the entire SKU range and depth. Range is the variety, depth is how many units you order from each type of SKU. So the entire SKU range and depth you need to forecast 5 months before the season starts, because you have to order all the fabrics and cut it and make it ready, obviously. So they had very high alignment to forecast, 95% alignment to forecast, but 30% shortages of the best sellers 2 months into the season. Okay, so you may celebrate it as very good, sold out cases that you've made the right bet and you have produced this design that really sold good. But you can imagine how much these shortages, to what extent they represent lost sales, right? Your fast-moving products are not available at the stores. 50% of sales are at full price, 30% are on at least 50% discount at the end of the season. And you have 20% returns post-season because you cannot do a carryover from one season to the other. Okay, so there is something wrong with our forecast, obviously. So let's spend some time to understand why forecasts are not so easy to do, even though we have to do them. And why this is the case, even though we have better IT tools to help us do it and more history of recorded consumption. So why do we do forecast at the end of the day? Because we want to have the right product at the right place at the right time. That's the objective. And in order to do that, we use forecasts. And I don't know if you will agree with me or not, but when I speak with many, many managers around the world, I talk about hundreds of managers, I mean, I do ask them, is your forecast accurate? But not on the average level and not on the trend, but I'm really asking on the product, location, time level. Because at the end of the day, we don't sell trends, we sell products. And we sell the products at a particular store at a particular time. So to what extent these forecasts, which are really the forecasts that dictate whether we have the right inventories, to what extent are they correct, accurate? And I always hear that they're not. It's not easy, getting easier to make the forecast right. Actually, it's getting harder and harder to get it right. And why this is the case? So let me spend like 15 minutes to explain to you why the accuracy of the forecast deteriorate and why it will not get better in the future. Actually, it will get worse in the future, even though we have better IT tools. I will share with you 3 types of dynamics that are happening worldwide in every industry, in every segment, in every geography. You will see, and I assume you will agree with me. And each one of these dynamics deteriorates the accuracy of the forecast that we have to make. Now, each one of these dynamics is actually an interaction between consumers' behavior and the reaction of companies to this behavior. And these reactions and this dynamic of consumer behaviors and reactions of retailers deteriorate the accuracy of the forecast that we have to make. So let us start with the first one, and you will see also why I'm claiming that it will not go away in the future. So the first dynamic that deteriorates the accuracy of the forecast starts with the following consumer behavior. We call it consumer personalization, which basically means that consumers are becoming more and more sensitive to get the product that fits their individual desires and tastes. Would you agree this is the case? That over the last several years, consumers are becoming more picky, if you wish, that they're more sensitive to get the product that fits whatever their individual desires and tastes show them. I want it in pink, I want it in purple, etc. I assume you would agree with me, and that you would also agree with me that this is not just the case in clothing, but it's happening more and more in many, many industries, right? The need for customization, the need for greater variety. Now, if this is the case, if consumers are more picky, how does this impact companies that at the end of the day service consumers? If they want to sell more, and under the assumption that consumer tastes are not uniform, the variety is very high, then companies are now under pressure to operate with a wider and wider range of products. Do you agree? Let's see some examples. So here's a retailer this retailer sells sport goods. So it can be from sports clothing to sport accessories, etc. And they operate in a certain region in Europe. They have about 70 stores. And actually not small stores, actually, it's quite a big retailer. Look at their range of SKUs of products that they sold in an average store between 2009 and 2012. Okay, you can see that it moved from 11,000 SKUs to almost 23,000, more than doubled the number of SKUs in a store, simply because you have to operate and offer more and more variety of choices to consumers. Okay, this is not just the case in a fashion retailer or sport retailer. You may ask yourself, okay, but this doesn't concern more fast-moving consumer goods. So let me show you statistics that was done in an average supermarket in the US between 1992 and the year 2010. Okay, and what you see here is the number of SKUs of products in an average supermarket. Okay, the blue line represents food and beverage, and the purple line is the non-food SKUs. And you can see both these curves are, in the epidemic time, we call them exponent, are growing quite dramatically with time. Okay, and more than doubling the number of SKUs in a store. Again, under the pressure to offer more choices, to expand the range of products. So, before, maybe 20 years ago, you could say that I want my red tomatoes. What can it be? A tomato is a tomato, but today it's not the case anymore. You have red tomatoes and green tomatoes and yellow tomatoes and orange tomatoes, and you can have it small, you can have it in different sizes, different shapes. You can have it in 12-pack, 24-pack, in a kilogram, in the variety is enormous, even in vegetables. Okay, obviously this also have effects on the supply chain. Look at automotive, for example. The purple line that you see here, again, an exponent, shows the number of products, different products that are sold between 1997 and 2015. The growth is 170%. And what you see here is that the blue line, dark blue line, the middle is the number of raw materials and components. Obviously, the industry tried to standardize the components as much as possible, but still it grew by 130%. The number of different components that we need because of the pressure to customize and offer more choices. Okay, same for machinery, the different types of machinery that we need to use. You can see the same graph here. So what you can see in all these graphs is this notion of exponent that is happening. Now, why do we see this exponent? Why do we see that the growth of the number of SKUs in stores or in different categories of products is growing so fast? In science, when we see an exponent, we're trying to look for the feedback loop. Now, everybody are experts in the word exponent because of the epidemic, right? So what is causing it? We're trying to look for the feedback loop. What does it mean, feedback loop? We have a certain cause that is creating an effect. Now, through some cause and effect relationship, the effect is strengthening the cause. And because now the cause is bigger, the effect becomes bigger, and then it strengthens the cause even more. It's like a chain reaction, okay, if you wish. The base of people that are infected is growing, and therefore there are more people that are infected, so the base of people that will infect others is growing, etc., etc. It's a feedback loop. So we see this exponent in the range of products that is growing. What is causing it? Where is the feedback loop? Actually, it's not so difficult to understand. Let's see together. If companies operate with a wider range of products, how does this affect the consumers? Now, consumers actually are aware of even more choices that are offered in the market. How does this affect their personalization, their need to be choosy? Obviously, they become even more picky. I thought I can get it in pink, right? So there is a feedback loop here. Now that companies are operating with wider and wider range of products, this increases consumer personalization and in return pushes company to offer even more choices, because if you don't offer it, the competitor will do it. Fair enough? We have therefore this feedback loop that you see here that is causing the effect, which is the range of products, to increase dramatically. Now, why am I telling you all this story? It's not just for us to understand reality. We're trying to understand why the accuracy of the forecast is not getting better. So let's try to understand now what is the relationship between the range of products that we need to operate with and the accuracy of the forecast that we have to make on the product level. What do you think will be the relationship? The wider the range of products that I need to operate with, is it easier or tougher to make an accurate forecast? I think that all of you, at least intuitively, if not by experience, will tell me, well, if I need to manage even more SKUs, more products, the accuracy of my forecast will reduce. But why? Why the accuracy reduces when I need to operate more with more products, with more range? Here, I would like to share with you something that is very, very important. So any one of you that listen here and manage a company that either already experienced it or about to experience it, you need to prepare yourself, because the moment you go into customization, the moment you go into increasing the range of products that you operate with or components, etc., what I'm going to tell you now is unavoidable. You know, I'm Jewish. In the Jewish tradition, we say, if we want to strengthen that something is unavoidable, we say, you know, Moses came down from Mount Sinai with 10 commandments, but there was an 11th commandment written on the back of the tablet. That it's also always true, and you need to remember it. And what is this unavoidable phenomenon? In order to understand it, let me share with you this graph. Okay, this is from this watch retailer that I shared with you at the beginning of my presentation. What you see here is this line shows the number of the different SKUs that they manage, and the blue line shows the contribution of these SKUs to sales, while the red line shows the contribution of these SKUs to inventory. We have the head products, so similar is a relatively short, small share of SKUs that contribute a lot to sales and to inventory. We have the belly products that contribute in the middle, and we have, unfortunately, the very long and wide tail, which means a lot of SKUs that contribute a lot to inventory. However, their contribution to sales is almost negligible. The slow-moving products, the tail. Why am I telling you this? Because of the following unavoidable phenomena. The wider the range of products that we need to operate with, the bigger the tail. I'll repeat, the wider the range, the bigger the tail. Bigger the tail means you will have more slow-moving products that you need to operate with. Unavoidable. Now, I assume I do not need to explain to you that to have an accurate forecast on a slow-moving product is much more difficult to make, right? I can fairly well understand how much red tomatoes I need, but this green tomato in this small size in a 12-pack, now it's more difficult for me to guess how much I will need in a particular day in a particular store. Now, therefore, as managers, we face the following problem. My father used to say that the ultimate constraint of any business is not cash, and it's not a machine, and it's not demand. The ultimate constraint is management attention. Our ability to manage the complexity, the uncertainty, the conflicting requirements that we have and get the results. And he said that, unfortunately, a lot of our attention is not dealing with strategies and with opportunities, but a lot of our managerial attention is dealing with problems, with fires that we need to put off. So if I will draw management attention to the size of range of products that I need to operate with, I will get a U-curve. What do I mean by a U-curve? If I operate with too low range, okay, I will have a lot of problems because I'm not offering enough choices in the market. And therefore, management attention will be very high. As I increase the range, I offer more choices, these problems go away, but there is a point of time that when I increase the range even further, I'll have new type of problems, because the share of slow-moving products, the tail, that I need to manage is getting bigger and bigger, and that brings it with it a lot of different problems. Okay, and then a lot of very high management attention. So if we operate with too little range, not enough choices, a lot of problems. If we operate with too much range, unavoidably, a lot of slow-moving products, a lot of problems. We need to be in the middle. In other words, we need to operate with a range of products that on one hand, offer enough choices in the marketplace without inflating our portfolio with slow-moving products that only contribute to inventory, not to anything else. So we need to be in the middle. That's very nice, Rami. But how do we know where is the middle? Can we make a forecast that will tell us how many different types of shirts I need to have in a particular store? And even if we get this forecast right by chance, this forecast can be wrong next month. And it could be wrong because of things that are totally out of our control. A competitor or open another store, or offer or launch a different brand. Suddenly, the number of different designs I need to hold in a store will be different. Okay, I'm launching a new product. It could also change the range of products that I need to hold. So how can we be in the middle without the ability to forecast it? Good question, right? Before we go there, let us understand the other two dynamics that deteriorates the accuracy of the forecast. I hope I'm not boring you, because again, this is not just an academic understanding. I'm trying to highlight and to stress one thing, which is the more you will be dependent on the accuracy of the forecast, the less successful you will be. Therefore, the direction should not be to have a better, more control, more precise forecast, but on the other hand, the direction should be to have much more agile and reactive operations. Okay, let's see the second dynamic that deteriorates the accuracy of the forecast. Let's see if you can agree with me. The second dynamic that deteriorates the accuracy of the forecast is called consumers' tolerance time. I'll remind you, each one of the dynamics is an interaction between consumer behaviors and the reaction of companies to these behaviors. So what is consumer tolerance time? Consumer tolerance time is the time consumers are willing to wait to have the product available. Now, I'll ask you, do you think that over the years, consumers are willing to wait longer, more time, or are willing to wait less to have the products available? What is your experience? I assume that just like many other managers, you will agree with me that consumers actually are less and less patient. They are willing to wait less and less. Even when we offer them special choices, they are willing to wait less and less for the product to be available. Okay? Now, how does this impact companies that service consumers? They are willing to wait less, and therefore companies are under pressure to service them as quickly as possible. Remember, when the tolerance time equals 0, this means that if you do not have the product in front of the consumer when he wants to buy, kiss goodbye the sale. Don't tell him to come back to the store next week. Don't tell him to go to another store. You lost the sale. Well, that's when it's equals 0. Now, many times it doesn't equal 0, but still the tolerance time is reducing. And therefore, companies are under pressure to hold higher, more stock, and to spread the stock closer to the consumers so they can be more reactive. Okay? Sometimes people tell me, look, why do you say consumer tolerance time is increasing? Because the fact that people buy online and are not going to the store to pick their product just means that it means that they're willing to wait longer. But then I remind you that if you look at online retailers, more and more the competition there is no longer on variety and prices, but on delivery times. And you can see the reaction of these companies trying to reduce the delivery times. They used to hold the inventory only with their suppliers. Now they have the central warehouse, regional warehouse, metro warehouses, even stores like in Amazon, trying to react very fast to consumer demand. Now, when I need to hold upfront more inventory, and when I need to spread the inventory in different locations so I can enjoy less the power of aggregation, obviously this deteriorates the accuracy of my forecast. Now, as we saw, the tolerance time, when I said that it's reducing, it reduces quite dramatically over the years. And again, this is because of a feedback loop that we see in reality. When companies hold more stock and they spread the stock closer to consumers, how does this impact consumers? They become less patient, they become spoiled. We spoil them. They get used to the fact that products are available, and therefore less tolerant when suddenly products are not available. Therefore, we have again a feedback loop that puts pressure on companies to increase as much as possible the reaction to consumers, the availability to consumers, and deteriorate the accuracy of their forecasts. Now again, we have a problem. If I will draw management attention to stock, before that, if you notice, I draw it against range, now against stock, we get again a U-curve. If I have too little stock, then I have a lot of shortages, and consumers are not willing to wait. If I will have too much stock, then obviously costs go through the roof, because again, accuracy of forecast is not so accurate. So I will have a lot of surplus inventory. I need to be in the middle. Where is the middle? Can somebody tell me? Do you have a crystal ball? Now remember, this phenomena does not happen on its own. It happens at the same time that the first phenomena happens. In other words, we are under pressure to hold more stock on a greater variety of products. Now, how can we be in the middle without having the forecast right? We will share in a moment, but first let's understand the third dynamic, which is very important to understand, because in many industries, the third dynamics, if you look at its impact on forecasts, on the accuracy of forecasts, it's actually more significant than the impact of these two dynamics combined in terms of ruining the accuracy of our forecast. So let's look at the third dynamic first, and then move into what can we do, what can we do tomorrow, etc. The third dynamic, we call it product life cycle. Product life cycle basically means how long a product is valid in the marketplace before a substitute arrives. Okay. Now, before, as you can see in this graph, before it's over the maturity level and the demand declines since it has a substitute product to replace it. Now, I'll ask you, what do you think happens to product life cycles over the years? Is it getting longer? Are products valid in the marketplace for a longer period of time, or are they getting shorter and shorter? I think you would agree with me that across industries, we see that product life cycles are getting shorter and shorter. In some industries, to the extent that consumers already expect new products. Even if the current ones are good enough, they will look for the new product. They want a new product, like in electronic goods, like in fashion, etc. Now, why do we see that it's getting shorter and shorter? Again, because of the impact it has through a feedback loop. Let's see. If product life cycle is getting shorter and shorter, how does this impact companies? What do they need to do? Companies increase the rate of new product introductions. They're under pressure to introduce new products faster to the marketplace, right? Because if they don't do it and the competition does it before, they can lose the game. But this action of increasing the rate of new product introduction on its own merit has a feedback loop. It will reduce the product life cycle. And therefore, we have this feedback loop. Okay, let's take an example of, I don't know, televisions. If you will compare the life cycle of televisions, let's take the US, because over there they measure everything, so we can use this data. If I will go back to the 80s, and I will examine the product life cycle of a television. By the way, one of the most practical ways we have seen to measure product life cycle is with one of the retailers who sold electronic goods, and he told us that for him, the product life cycle is very easy to determine. It's basically how long a product can be in the store until the only way to get rid of it is to give a dramatic discount. Not the regular promotion, but the promotion of end of season or end of product life cycle. So if you use this definition of television, okay, so how long a television can be in a store in the US in the 80s before the only way to get rid of it is to give a dramatic discount? The answer is 3 years. Okay, so in the 80s, a television could be 3 years in a store and you can still sell it at a normal price. What it is today, is it 3 years? I don't think so. 2 years? A year? I've done this presentation in Japan a while ago, and the audience started to laugh and said, well, in Japan, we believe it's even less than 6 months. No wonder, because of the rate companies introduce new products in the marketplace. Now, what is the relationship between the life cycle of a product and the accuracy of the forecast? I think here you don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that the more new products I'm introducing, the less accurate my forecast. First of all, because these are new products, so I have zero history of consumption to learn from. But not only that, every time I'm introducing a new product, I disrupt the rate of consumption of all the other relevant products. So not only that I don't know about this new product, I have zero history of consumption, it will also change the rate of consumption of all the other products I have, relevant products, and therefore make a misalignment between the forecast I made and their inventories. So again, we have this problem. If I will draw management attention to new product introduction, I will again have a U curve. If I will not introduce enough new products, I will have low freshness. I'm not offering enough new products in as clients expect. If I will, at the other hand, if I will introduce too much new products, too many, then also I face a lot of problems. For example, I'm introducing a lot of new products, so the inventories of the current products I have, I need now to discount, mark down to get rid of it. So I'm losing on the margin level. So maybe I'll be now very conservative when I'm holding inventory because I know I'm launching new products all the time, but then I will have a lot of shortages. Okay, so I need to be in the middle. Not too many new products launched, not too few. How do I know where is this middle? Can a forecast be very accurate here? Not so much. So now you see why I claim that the accuracy of the forecast that we have to make is not going to be more accurate. And actually, we can fairly assume, like my father said, that forecast will be wrong the moment you write it. So how do we deal with such a phenomenon? Yes, we have to make planning, we have to make forecasts, but we know that they will be wrong. So how do we deal with it? And I claim now that the only way out, and actually let me present it in a positive way. I will claim that companies that will master the ability to do what I'm just going to tell you, they will flourish in the future more and more. And actually all the successful cases we see are companies who operate like that. And we need to learn how to do it. So the only way out is to reduce as much as possible the reaction time to what reality teaches us. And this is what I call bringing forecasts closer to reality. Okay, we need to read the signals from reality as quickly as possible, signals that actually tells us whether we are climbing one of the extremes of these U-curves. We are starting to climb them, the middle moved. So we need to read it very quickly, but reading it is not enough. We also need to react very quickly. In other words, not to have too much or not have too little inventories due to this move of the middle. Now, I think it's quite easy to understand that the better you are in doing this, and it's all about flow, the more successful you will be if you have these three dynamics dominating your industry. But the question is how to do it. So it's easier said than done, as we say. So here I will tell you two things, at least from our experience, and then I will move into a case study to show it. It's like I have bad news and good news. The good news is that from what we see, our experience, in most cases, the technology and the information is already available for you in your industry in order to react much faster to the right signals in reality, to not to climb any one of the extremes. It's not a problem of technology. The bad news is that it is a problem of policies. Policies within your company and between your companies and your customers or your suppliers. Policies that actually inflate the reaction time to reality, either by causing you, your supplier, or your customer to work with bigger batches, to wait longer before they place an order, to wait longer before they give you information about sales, to wait longer before they batch the transportation time, to wait longer before they produce the inventories, to wait longer before they set a purchase order so they have bigger quantity to purchase and get discounts, etc. Every time you batch, you are increasing the time to react to what reality tells you, and therefore you're forcing yourself to make forecasts longer in advance, longer from the time of the actual consumption, right? Earlier, you need to make them, and therefore the accuracy of the forecast will become less and less unavoidable because of the dynamics I've just told you. So it is more a problem of policies and measurements that you need to change. If you want, and I will relate it to the first webinar we have done, you need to break your own inertia, and not only your inertia, but your supply chain partner inertia, in order to react much faster. But technology is there, information is there for you to be able to do it. So let's use a case study in the time remaining. I have like 15 minutes to go over it in order to understand what do I mean by reading the signals very quickly and reacting very quickly to these signals. There is a lot of information on the TOC supply chain distribution solution, and I'm not going to go into the technicality of this information. There are also a lot of experts that can help you in learning this. My main emphasis in this presentation is if you are suffering from the dynamics I mentioned, or if you see them in your environment, all your thought should be about increasing the reaction time to reality. Everything else, you'll just become a victim. You'll say, okay, my planning is not right, I've done the best I can, but you will still suffer from the problems. So let's see an example. This is a very large toy company that we work with. In this toys business, if very, very large, okay, working all over the world. If you want to achieve your sales volume to support your business and create your profits, the way to do it is to bet, if you wish, on the right popular children characters. So, for example, to purchase the license for the next Elsa, like in Frozen, Walt Disney. Okay, so you can create a lot of toys and dolls, etc., around this popular character that children love, and then you can sell all these volumes. So unfortunately, this company, they did not bet on the right future most popular kids characters. The licenses for the ones that really became the popular were not owned by them. And the ones that they have, the current characters' popularity was not as strong and was fading with time. Therefore, sales stagnated, which threw them into a vicious cycle. Okay, there was pressure to increase sales because sales were reducing. And this forced them, remember the U curve we talked about, the range of products? This forced them to operate with a very wide range of products at discount prices. Let me explain. in certain industry, it's actually not so difficult to increase the range of products that you operate with. It's just minor product line update. For example, it's the same doll, but with different dress, okay, or with different accessories. So in the toys business, that's the case. It's very easy to have minor product line updates and therefore increase more and more the range of products. And because they did not have their own retail and they service through other retailers, the way they encourage retailers to buy more for them was to say, okay, now we came with another collection of these dolls with more products, etc. But these were not any breakthrough products. It was just minor product line updates. So at the end of the day, they just inflated the retailers with more slow-moving products, as we discussed earlier. And at the end of the day, they had to, the retailer says, okay, you want me to buy more from you? I'm stuck with all these slow-moving products. Give me a very big discount. So that's how they reached operating with wide range of products at discount price, which obviously impacted their gross margin, which means they have not made profit, which only increased further the pressure to sell more and therefore launch even more products in the marketplace. This translates to the following impact on the marketing team. Okay, so sales were going down, pressure to introduce a lot of products. The marketing team started to spread the resources thin across many minor product line updates. New products were not successful enough, so they lost their confidence in new product introductions. And this created a herd of undesirable effects for this business. Okay, most new products were minor line updates with track record of sales. They started to confirm to any demand by any retailer just to make the sale. They rely on consumer research to justify internal decisions. I'm sure you understand what I mean, okay? If not, we can talk about it later, okay? Relying on competitors to make the decisions, they stopped being active. It was only reactive, sorry. Looking at what the competitors are doing and then start to react, obviously too late, etc., etc. This obviously made them less and less successful, and the wheel was really spinning. So if when I told you about the range of their products, they reach the following scenario. This is actual data, okay? 8% of their products contribute to 60% of sales and 23% of inventory. That's the head. Belly, 21% of their products contributed to 30% of sales and 37% of inventory. And obviously, when you operate with very wide range of products, as I told you, the unavoidable phenomena, you have a very wide tail. 71% of products contribute to 10% of sales and to 40% of inventory. And remember, not only your inventory, but the retailer inventory, and that's why he forced you to give discounts. That was the reality. So when you are facing such a scenario, I recommend first thing is just do this Pareto chart to understand the share of head, of belly, and tail of your products. And then understand one thing, head will be your sales driver. Belly and tail is nothing but a stock driver. It doesn't contribute to sales. It actually cannibalizes. You have too many options. You're not increasing, even though you see you're selling some of the tail, they would have buy other choices, not necessarily the tail. You're only inflating stock and spreading your marketing resources too thin and your operations complexity too high. The belly, if you have such a scenario, will offer you enough choices in the marketplace to offer enough variety. Okay, obviously you need a mechanism to know if the variety is right or wrong. We'll talk about it later on if we have time. Now, with this understanding, let's apply the 5 focusing steps. Identify the system constraint. In their case, it was market and sales, right? Because the sales were reducing. Even cash flow was a consideration. How to decide to exploit the system constraint? They said, okay, first, because the cash is already an issue, and let's go with product rationalization. What does it mean? It means let's reduce the range of products that we operate so we can focus our operation, our NPI, our supply chain, our sales, everything on the more winning products. Okay, this will also release a lot of cash from the system. Subordinate everything else to the above decision. Let's align all the organization, make the changes required in operations to support these changes. A lot of work has to be done with the sales people because obviously they are the ones that are pushing you to customization. Elevate the system constraint. Okay, so how do we now think about new products and business domain development by innovation? We will not cover in this webinar step number 4. How do you come up with breakthrough products? The subject of innovation, there is a very robust TOC methodology to do it, and maybe it will be a subject of a different session that we will offer together with VISTEM in the marketplace. How do you increase the chances of success coming up with a new product? Do it very methodically, but this is not the subject of this webinar. I would like to focus more on this product rationalization and how do you get more from what you have. So you remember the head, belly, tail? Okay, we have these few products that contribute a lot to sales, then the belly, and then the very long tail, a lot of SKUs that don't contribute much to sales. So that's a nice graphic to remember the key message, which is protect your head. So whatever it is, you define a criteria that will tell you what is a fast-moving product. This you need to protect. Make sure it's always available at the right places, that it's populated in all the right places. This is your sales driver. You know, whenever we work with a company, whatever fits the criteria of a head product, and if it doesn't, it's not available in a certain place that it should be available, it's considered a crime. Protect the head. Keep your belly in shape. What does it mean? It means your belly is the variety of products that should offer enough choices in the marketplace, and you need to make sure that enough of them will convert to head products and not to tail products. And I'll show you how in a moment. And don't grow your tail. And if you need to cut it because it's already too long, you cut the tail. Now how you do it? The solution. Ongoing rationalization process driven by head, belly, and tail. So first, create an ongoing focus mechanism to focus sales and operations on best sellers and profitable products. Dramatically reduce the tail and populate retail shelves with belly products, where competition is higher but demand is more consistent, so it doesn't become a tail. Introduce new products in sync with tail liquidation. This is very important. I will explain the first 2 bullets in a moment, but let me just expand on the third one. When you are introducing a new product, you don't know the probability of sale. So the worst thing you can do is that you will replace a bestseller with a new product. Why? Because you're taking a product that you know that the probability of sale is high, and you replace it with an unknown, with a product that has unknown probability of sale. Now, if you have too much inventory packed in the stores, what will happen is that the rate of new product introduction will be determined by the open to buy, by your ability to sell out products from the store. Now, fast movers will be sold quicker than the slow movers. So now what will open the budget in the store to buy your new product are actually the fact that they sold fast moving products. And now because of that, you will replace new products instead of fast moving that was sold. That's a crime. New products should be replacing the tail products. So you need to be active on liquidating tail from your portfolio and replacing new products from tail instead of tail. Let's expand a little bit about what does it mean, what does this method mean. Replace tail with head products were not populated. So first thing we have done, we looked at all the stores, we looked at the slow moving product and said, look, we'll come to you, give us back the tail product and put the better selling product instead. Obviously, when the retailer will sell more of these fast movers, and of course it was under the agreement that when they sell these head products, they will replenish them from us. Replenish quickly head products. So you build the mechanism that whenever a head product is sold, you replenish it as quickly as possible. This may mean a deal with the retailer that they will inform you whenever head products are sold and you replenish them quickly. Reorder belly products with best alternatives. So if you have the right mechanism, what you can always do is you can compare with when a product is not meeting the criteria to be a fast mover, but it's also not meeting, it's a belly, it's also not a slow mover. Now a retailer sold it. What should you recommend to replace it with? Okay, so you can look at all your products and do a like-to-like scenario. Remember, the last thing you want is to replace it with a tail product. You want to replace it with higher bestseller products. Introduce small batch new products and replenish quickly on consumption. Don't inflate the stores with new products and then basically you're taking a risk that you will inflate the tail. It's much better to do these pilots of new products to see if they're working well, selling well, and then you replenish them. Ensure proper display space with sellable belly products. Establish deals with retailers. Okay, I will not go into it because we're out of time, but the last point is very, very strong, very important. Dramatically reduce the supply lead times. And that has to do with eliminating all the policies I've mentioned about batching. The faster your supply lead times are, the more you will be reactive to the signals from reality and be able to replenish quickly, and therefore less dependent on forecasts. We don't have the time to go there, but I think that there are a lot of materials of TOC and supply chain, and if you can ask, you can contact VISTEM or us, and we can share it with you better on how do you dynamically manage your inventories or your customers' inventories or your supply chain inventories in order to not make forecasts, but to dynamically manage the inventory levels based on the actual rate of consumption. We call it dynamic buffer management, and there are very good ways of how to apply it in reality, in different realities, in realities of long lead times, of short lead times of supply, etc., how to deal with all these varieties. We're not going to go into this presentation, but again, the point of the matter is that you're reacting very quickly to what reality tells you instead of forecasting it and then praying to God that your forecast was more or less accurate. There are also, you see here, head availability monitoring. So that's to make sure that your head is populated. You need to track it all the time. Tail stock monitoring. What you see here is something new that is about reading or managing the variety levels. So if you have enough points of sales or customers that collaborate with you and giving information, you can start monitoring the different variety in the different categories of products. And based on that, we see very quickly whether you're holding too much or too less of a variety of products. Because after you have done the rationalization and you reduce your tail products, and even when you're now trying to populate and introduce new products only instead of tail and not instead of head, your range of products can still inflate. And you need to know how to manage the variety in every consumption point, if you wish, and you can do it there by reading whether you're climbing on one of the extremes by comparing it to like categories in like point of consumption. Now, I know I'm sounding a bit vague, but I didn't want to go into the technicalities of how to do it, and there is enough information for you to learn about this. I would like to finish my presentation just to give you a glimpse into the next step, because everything I've told you now is about, being much more reactive to reality, to not depend on the accuracy of the forecast that we are doing. But this is not enough to excel. In order to excel, you also need to think, how do I introduce my new products in a much more systematic way so they are becoming breakthrough products, they become head and best sellers. There is a method about it. It's called POC for business innovation. And of course, we're not going to go into it. I'm just giving you as a teaser for one of our next webinars or sessions, talking about how do I look at and examine reality, not from my point of view, but from the customer point of view, and trying to ask, would the customer gain exceptional value? Okay, my father said, value is created by removing a significant limitation for the customer. So how can we identify significant limitations of customers and remove them with a certain product or a service in a way that was not possible before, and to the extent that no competitor can? And there's a whole, all of this is called the business innovation process of TOC, and that's something that you also need to do in order to increase your head products, if you will. Okay, thank you very much. I hope it was interesting and I trigger your curiosity to learn more. Thank you. Uwe? Yes.
Thank you, Rami. Thank you very much. I've looked at all the questions, and most of them you have answered some seconds later, so I don't need to read them to you, but there are, let's say, two questions, 2 or 3 questions I would like to show to you, and maybe you can give us an answer about that. So I have to take the screen to myself. What is this? Yeah, so one question was, as you said, you have not only to break your own inertia, but the inertia of your supply chain partners too. And the question is how? Maybe you can say some words about that. Oh, I can't hear you, Rami. You are off.
Maybe I should not be on mute. The answer is very, very direct, and it is the first thing you need to do is to really understand how this will be beneficial for these partners. So if it's only good for you but not good for them, then why would they cooperate? Okay, now that's the starting point. I'm not saying that if it's beneficial for them, that's it, they will change. That's not the case. Obviously, there is a buying process that we need to go through. But you know what? First, this is the key ingredient of success. Think carefully. Why will this be beneficial for them? Would they agree with it? Okay. By collaborating with you on putting the right system in place, would they earn more? For example, the toy business that I shared with you, a lot of work was done to convince the retailers to cooperate, to share the data, because we showed them that by collaborating, they will increase the profitability of their toys category. Okay, and we have to do a pilot first. It wasn't so straightforward. Also, internally, we had to work a lot to convince the plant in the Far East to operate with smaller batches. At the beginning, they said that it will be much more complicated to them, but we said, no, we're going to reduce the variety of products, so you're actually going to have much more uniform production, much less complex operation to make, but producing much smaller batches. Please.
Okay, thank you. Second question. It seems to be counterintuitive. If I have a best-selling product, why shouldn't I make it better? This means replace it in order to sustain a competitive edge.
The answer is the following. First of all, I did not say don't make it better. So replacing it doesn't mean, if you're replacing it by replacing it with a better product, that's fine. That's why we have this TOC for business innovation. Okay, look at it from a different angle. What I'm trying to say is, if you have a bestseller and you have a tail product, and you just want to introduce something as another variety of products, okay, that are not replacing the head products, they're just adding another variety. Just make sure that they are not instead of a fast-moving product. Okay, now if you have few products and you're just talking about upgrading them, then what you need to make sure is that that the upgrade obviously is a breakthrough and not just minor product line update, because then consumer will be disappointed. And for that, we have this process called TOC for business innovation, which we have not shared yet.
Okay, great. By the way, here are some questions or comments regarding when this webinar will be on TOC for business innovation, but we didn't agree on a date, but we will do in the future.
This you need to ask, not me.
Last question. Can this HBT classification be used the same way in distributors?
I think so, definitely. It should be.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much, Rami.
Thank you, my friends.
Thank you all for
Until next time.
today. See you next week or on another day. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a good time. Stay healthy. Thank you, Rami.